students have a problem with that because they think that we're looking for the right answer, and they often want to go back and change them. So this is something you do have to work on with the kids, about not changing them. It's okay that it wasn't expected. Your results were not expected.
Yeah, it's always interesting to throw in a few examples of things that have gone supposedly wrong in science, which actually led to some really interesting developments.
Exactly.
This is Brent from Deer Island. One thing that really caught my mind reading all 4 chapters, particularly the first chapter, was that we have a perceived notion that the kids come to school with an idea of condensation or the sun and the earth and the moon, and we think that a lot of kids grow up with the same life experiences as we grew up with. And I think that when you really dig deep, you'll find that a lot of students are coming to school without any of those background knowledge, life skills to get into the science concepts and theories and discussions. And so we really have to backtrack a little bit, I think, to make sure that we have the proper understanding of how they're coming into class with those, what life experiences they have coming into class.
Yeah, that's great, Brendan. And as you were talking there, it put me in mind. That was one of my notes as well. It was in chapter 3. I love that idea of having students share, and in the book they talk about having them sketch their ideas, because sometimes we're standing there thinking that they have a good handle on. The one that got me was the bones of the body, and yeah. The poor student's little sketch of how they thought the bones in the body were formed up, right. And we can be teaching away, and they can be on a totally different planet than we think they are.
Right.
That's what, and I think that's a great point that you bring up, Brent. But that's why it's so important that we are making sure that we're providing students with shared experiences in the classroom. So giving them something tangible and hands-on that they're right. able to explore. So everybody has a way to communicate what it is, and we can build on that, right? So really important to recognize that our kids from all sorts of places and experiences.
The other, this again is Brent from Deer Island. The other thing that caught my attention, and I believe it's toward chapter 3 or even chapter 4, but it goes on, and being an elementary school teacher, and we're going through a new process now where a lot of the meetings I go to, it talks about the students need to be talking more. And again, there's one directive in the book where it talks about the teacher expects the children to be very quiet, do their work, whereas another teacher doesn't mind if the kids are discussing things and there's learning going on with the discussion. And I think a new concept or a new idea that some of the older teachers, and I don't mean it in any sense, but some of the older teachers are going through, is that when students are engaged, the classroom is going to get a little bit louder, and there's going to be a lot of questions throughout the group.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brent. It's definitely a change, and it's a change that's been underway for some time. So, the classroom that we see today is not the same classroom that we saw 10, 15 years ago in terms of teacher talk and student talk. I mean, still obviously a long way to go, but I think we're moving in that direction, right?
I love to refer to that as controlled chaos.
Right.
See a little controlled chaos in my classrooms.
Kind of along those same lines, I liked the part that sort of read it again, time, and it goes along with that same idea about the amount of teacher talk and student talk, and really, I know at the middle level, been really nice to have the 2 units this year and to have more time for inquiry and have more time to allow that to happen. Teachers have really felt like everything has been rushed and feeling that they need to complete all these things. So with those 2 units, it allows more time to have that flow happen and allow that wait time and not in a huge rush, and let that discovery happen, and making sure that students do have the time to work away at it.
I'm just writing furiously here, Bonnie, as you speak. So, I totally agree.
On page 40, it goes into an explanation of using puppets or the concept cartoons, but it's suggesting that the puppets can keep requiring explanations. I don't understand, explain why that, those sorts of things to help probe the students' thinking. But I was curious, because they didn't really specify in the book what age they're suggesting you would use that for, because I guess I personally can't imagine using the puppets with a middle level class. But
you'd have to know your kids and your own personality, maybe. I could see myself using it with my grade 12 physics students, but that's just me. But you're right. I mean, it obviously. That might be at a certain age. It's sort of that, it got me thinking, and as you were speaking about that, it got me thinking about we used to say, if you're brought in as a teacher and you might not be teaching the thing that you expected to be teaching, or the grade level that you expected to be teaching, there used to be that saying, or still is that saying, fake it till you make it. And I think, sometimes in this case, you can sort of turn that around to fake not knowing something until they make it, right? So one of the things that the book talks about is the teacher is that font of knowledge, and the kids coming to you for answers. And the whole thing with the puppets is that they don't know, so they keep asking those kids for more information. And as a teacher, it's not a bad thing to fake that you don't know something, right? And say, well, let's see if we can find that out. Or it's even better sometimes if you really don't know the answer, and then it's more authentic, right? Well, yeah, no, I don't know that. Let's see if we can find that out together, and take them down that investigative path to how would we actually find that out. So, as I say, I don't know what age the puppets might work or might not work, but even without puppets, that simple "I don't know" can be pretty powerful for the kids to one, realize that the teacher isn't the font of all knowledge, and two, to come up with a way to find that information out through that guided process.
Hi, it's Tracy talking.
Hi, Tracy.
I particularly liked at the end of every chapter that they had action points, and the chapter that I think perhaps got the most out of so far was number 2. And I liked how they said that we have to give students opportunities to make decisions rather than following instructions. So now I'm rethinking the way when we do explorations and experiments, instead of having all of the steps on what to do, bringing stuff in and talking through it and trying to allow them to have more input on what's being done.
Love it. That's where we want it to go with inquiry, so that's fantastic.
Again, this is Brent from Deer Island, but chapter 3 is all focused around students' ideas seriously, and I again teach a grade 2 and 3 class. So grade 2 doesn't technically have science, but we do You and Your World, which I incorporate lots of different things in the split class. And I think it's very important when we do talk about taking students' ideas seriously, and you can really see if they have something important to say or ask a question to ask. If you try and sidetrack that question, or if you put it off, it really affects their learning throughout that lesson and lessons to come. So I thought that was a great chapter, and taking ideas seriously and posting them on the board or posting them to a spot in your room to make sure that their ideas are important and that you will get to their question or to their ideas that they have.
Yeah, I really love that point. Has any using any strategies in order to actually help with this? Like, what kinds of things are you doing in your classrooms to do this? Like Brett, I think you said something about posting their questions.
Yeah, so we just have a little spot in the classroom, whether it be a piece of chart paper or I get a piece of board, and we put the main topic on there. And if they have any questions, again, some depending upon the student, but some of my students, especially, they can write their question out. Some of the twos, I'll help them post their question on the board to make sure that we can check or cross it out when we get to it, but to make sure that they know that I am getting to their question or their question is leading to another question. And that question was to find the answer to another question or inquiry or anything along those lines.
Does anybody do anything different or have tried anything different?
So I got an email from Erin Murrant, who said she said she couldn't be here today, but she sent this. She said, and again, it sort of aligns with what Brent was saying. She's been thinking about using some chart paper to write the questions on the side that they come up with, or like this. She said even using a question box in the class, like they do in health class. They could keep the questions anonymous, and then once a month or so, you could assign the questions to pairs of kids to have them find the answer. So even if they finish work early, they could get to a computer and research a question with a partner. Then the students could have some time to present their findings. The really good investigative questions could guide my lessons. And then these were just a few ideas that came to mind as I was pondering it. So I think that's kind of neat. I would probably. I wouldn't wait a month. A month in elementary school is sometimes an eternity. But that idea of having them pair up and investigate those things, if it was something that they weren't sure about, pop it in a box and kids can come back and investigate those things later.
This is Christine again. I know at the beginning of a section I've often the KWL charts, so listing what they think they know and what would they like or what do they wonder about. But as we progress through the activities, it's interesting to see that for as many of the questions that were answered, there are always that many more questions that get added to the chart as we're going through.
So with KWL, so interesting, I actually heard another way of doing that, because often with the KWL charts, I'm not sure if anybody has experience, but we get kids to write down what it is that they know, what they want to know, and what they learned. So interesting. I think they WITIK, W-I-T-I-K, is what I think I know, is what the W-I-T I know. So really kind of changing it and paring it down to two things. Their questions are kind of left off of this, more so as kids often don't have questions until you start giving them experiences. So it's kind of hard for them to ask something that they don't really know if we're introducing a new concept. So this was something one of the literacy leads had shared with me, and I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to look at it. So instead of it just looking at what it is that I know, because not necessarily all of their knowledge is correct, looking at it from the idea that what I think I know, and then what is it that they know after you've gone through your process and revisited. Anyway, that was kind of a little tidbit that one of the literacy mentors had brought up, and I thought it was an interesting way of looking at the WL chart. Yeah, WITIK, W-I-T-I-K. It stands for what I think I know. And then, of course, at the end, then you would just go back through and check over what it is they know. So it's a WITIK chart instead. So there would really only be two columns. And you could do at the end, if you were wanting to do it after, you could do what we learned or wondered about. could be like the second column.
So I had one more, and I mean, not that I want to close the discussion off, but Link is a funny medium. But one last thing that I had seen that I was kind of keen on discussing a little bit was in chapter 4. It's actually on page 46. They talk about asking better science questions. The whole idea of open versus closed questions, and person-centered versus subject-centered. So, what do you think this is instead of just what is this? And I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, I like that whole section, Darren. It's the same as you. Again, that open question. I liked how they talked about if you, the teacher, really don't know the answer, right? And that was okay. And then the different ways of kind of embracing that with the kids and giving them the opportunity to investigate, or even more time about, the infamous why the sky is blue.
Yes.
How they reworded it and said, well, is the sky always blue? Right. So, then you can turn it and investigate it in a different way. So I agree. I really like that section.
Yeah, and on that, I like it too about how it actually talked about adding the what do you think component of it as being less intimidating to the students instead of it being a little bit more closed, to open up the conversation. And once again, as teachers, we just think that we pose a question and we're looking for answers right away. And I really liked, and I'm not sure if it's in chapter 4 or later on when they're talking about questioning, but how talk about always giving the kids the time to think about the question and then turn to an elbow partner or something to discuss their ideas about the question before they share with the group. That might be further on. I might have spoiled something later on in the book, but I thought that was great with regards to questioning. I do really like the section on questioning.
Just don't tell me who shot JR.
Yeah.
That's good.
I also, a big part of when we get into talking about the questions that we ask, a sentence line, chapter 3 caught my mind, and it was going along with student discussions, and it says, students pick up and use words without fully grasping their meanings. And I think, again, down at the lower elementary level, students using words like condensation or reflecting on without exactly knowing what that means. So it really makes me want to dig deeper into that asking question side of it, make sure that they have the right concept of the thing that's being asked.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And it ties back into that whole idea of students' preconceived notions and making sure that we're both on the same wavelength. If we're talking about it doesn't matter what the topic is, right? If you talk about clouds and they think they're one thing and you think there's something else, then making sure that we're both talking the same language. So I know people have places to go. I don't want to cut this short. And actually, I've got to tell you that for having 8 people in a link room, this has gone better than I could have expected. I've been on a lot of link calls that go much worse than this. So congratulations to all of you for getting connected, and we're all fairly coherent, I think. But I guess before we do leave, we want to. I would like to get together face to face, and again, I realize that may mean some travel for some people. I can try and help out with that if that's a challenge. But I'd love to sit down. I mean, I love to eat, so I'd love to sit down and eat with you folks somewhere. If somebody wanted to suggest a nice place to sit and have a leisurely meal and a chat about the book? Is that something that people would be interested in?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great.
Where is a good place to meet? And I'm thinking St. John just because it is obviously central, right?
Central with air quotes.
Yeah.
Would there? Well, I don't know if there would be a somewhere on the. So we have people in the group that are from Deer Island,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Brett, you're from Deer Island, is that right?
Yes. Yep. Just gonna-
Yeah, I'm in similar area as Brent. This is Christine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like West Side St. John might be easier.
What about the Reversing Falls? That's it's right on the sort of the main drag.
I've never been there.
I never have either. Be interesting to try.
We can go out and stand on the platform and look down at the Reversing Falls. Let's tentatively say that. There's a couple of people coming from Sussex as well. So I think most of the people that are on our chat are St. John and west of St. John, but I know there are. We have people from Hampton on with us, and then there were a couple of people from Sussex as well who weren't able to join us today. So, but let's very tentatively say the Reversing Falls restaurant.
Can I make a suggestion of a date
Certainly.
that might work? What if, I don't know if this works for other people, but on April 25th, there's a D in the afternoon. I don't know if that would work for people traveling, being able to get out of their schools a little bit earlier and not having to worry about supply teachers.
Sorry, Julie, you cut out for a moment. I didn't quite catch what you said.
I was wondering if maybe the date on the April 25th would be PD that afternoon.
Okay.
If that would be a good date for people, with people being able to cut a little bit earlier, not having to worry about supplies and that kind of thing.
Anybody have strong feelings one way or the other about April 25th? Oh, Bonnie's not able to make that.
I don't have anything else scheduled for that after school, so I would be able to.
Okay.
Is there another one in May?
I think that one in April may be the last one.
Yeah, that looks like it's the last one.
And not that that has to be the date, but it is sometimes, as Julie says, a little easier to slip away. Just looking at other days. No, that wouldn't work. Well, why don't I do something similar to what we did with this? I'll send out another doodle poll, but I'll include that as one of the dates. If you have dates that would work particularly well, maybe send those to me, and we'll gather up 4 or 5 dates and try and go with something that works for most people. Because again, I'm aware too that we have 5 or 6 that weren't able to join us today as well. So I'd hate to pick a date and then have only a limited number of people show up if there was a better one available.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, thank you again, guys. As I say, feel free to follow up with me. I did record. I remembered about 2 minutes in to start recording it, so I have recorded this. I have no idea what the recording sounds like, but if it's at all audible, I'll make it available to those that weren't able to join. I took a ton of notes while you guys were discussing the book. I'll collate those into something logical and send that out to everybody as well. I hope you're enjoying the book as much as I have. My great standard for a book is that if I can get through it without falling asleep, it's probably a really good book. And this one, I kept turning the pages all the way to the end. So hopefully it's resonating with you guys as well. So have a good afternoon, and we will touch base here in the next day or so and come up with a date and a firmer location for our next meeting.
Thank you, Darren.